Will Jonathan Isaac, the Minister of Defense, be able to have a bounce back season this year offensively and add it to his impressive defense while increasing his workload to more than 15 minutes per game? We'll talk about that and more in his player profile. This is the Orlando Magic Nation, your source for all things Orlando Magic on YouTube. For Magic fans, by a Magic fan. I'm Edwin Valentine, and I want to thank you very much for clicking on this video and spending a little bit of time talking Magic with me. Now you can do the normal YouTube things like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce, as well as joining the Orlando Magic Nation community. If you haven't seen any of these player profiles, I basically go through them as if I was scouting the player. So I'll go through a little bit of intel or a little bio on them, as well as their stats from the previous season, and sometimes going back a little further. And we'll go over the film to verify what the stats are telling us. So let's start off with his bio. It's Jonathan Isaac. He's a power forward, shoot with his right hand predominantly, 6'10", 230 pounds. His nickname is the Minister of Defense. He was born on October 3rd, 1997 in the Bronx, New York. He went to university for 1 year in the 16-17 season with the FSU Seminoles. And in that season with the Seminoles, he played 32 games, scored 12 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 1.2 assists. And with the 6th pick in the 2017 draft, the Orlando Magic chose Jonathan Isaac. So in the 6 seasons that he has played, he's played 276 games. He's averaged 8 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, and 2.3 stocks per game. Everything with JI ends up coming back to his injury history. He's played 6 seasons so far, but he missed 2 full seasons out due to injury. He got injured at first in the bubble in 2020 and missed the whole 2020-2021 season and all of the 2021-2022 season. And then in the following season, the 22-23 season, he only played 11 games. So that's going to be the main question that we'll always have with Jonathan at this point. Anytime he falls down, we all kind of gasp just to make sure that he's able to get up after so many times not getting back up. But that also shows you his perseverance of wanting to get back into the league, wanting to get back from injury as soon as possible, even with all the setbacks that he's had. So now the only wonder we have is that are they going to continue to have kid gloves on him and keeping him from playing back to backs, keeping his workload under 16 minutes per game. So that's the thing that we're going to be watching out for this season, because it's been a few years now since the injuries, and the first full season back, he didn't play back to backs. And now this past season, he only averaged about 15 minutes per game. So we will see if they're able to start increasing that to get him up to 17 minutes a game, 18 minutes a game, because the more minutes he plays, the better our defense is going to be. But of course, the other question is he going to be able to bounce back from the tough offensive year he had last year? So if we look at the stats, and just like most of the other Magic players, when we go over their stats, offensively, they're not going to be great. Just the way the season went last year, most of the people are going to not fare very great in the percentiles, especially off of the website Cleaning the Glass, because of how poor the offense ranked last year. But if we look at his traditional stats, there are 2 lines there. The first row is just per game, and the second row is per 100 possessions, because that's just how people talk more in the NBA circles now. It's more per 100 possessions. But if we just do the per games, in 71 games last year, he averaged 5 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist per game, and averaged about 2 stocks per game as well. And stocks are steals and blocks. He had about 1 steal per game and 1.1 blocks per game there. And if you look at the advanced stats, really a lot of these are more team oriented. So if we look at the offensive rating, and it's the offensive rating is 105.9. That rating is what's the offensive rating of the whole team while he's on the court. That's not Jonathan Isaac's offensive rating. Okay. So the defensive rating while he was on the court for the Magic was 106.6. So there's a net rating difference of negative zero point 0.7. Now, that's something, again, you'll see with most of the Magic players just because our offense was so poor last year. The last two lines there are from the website Cleaning the Glass. So the first section there is offensively, and they break players down by groups. So if you're a point guard, you're a point. If you play both point guard and shooting guard, you're a combo guard. If you play shooting guard and small forward, then you're a wing. If you play both forward positions, you're a forward. If you play power forward and center, then you're considered a big. So last year he was considered a forward, even though prior to last season he'd bulked up a bit so that he'd be able to play some backup five. But as you saw throughout last season, in the end, that didn't come out at all. He really didn't play much at the five. So that's why even on Cleaning the Glass, as you can see, he's considered as a forward instead of a big. Because if he would have played sometime at center and power forward, then he would be considered a big. If we look at the percentiles on there in his 71 games in 15 minutes per game, his usage rate for amongst all forwards is in the 38th percentile at 15.2%. His points per shot attempt is in the 12th percentile at 101.3. His assist percentage is at the 7th percentile at 5.6%. His assist to usage rate is an 8th percentile at 0.37. And his turnover percentage is in the 81st percentile. There we go, at 8.7%. So just like many of the Magic players, he struggled on offense last year. It's mostly with his shot, and we'll go over a lot of that in depth in the film as well as in some of the other stats. But just so that you can see that, yes, offensively, he struggled immensely. If we look at the next section there, that lower part is the defensive ratings that he had. So in his 71 games and his 15 minutes per game, he was in the 100th percentile in blocks for forwards. So again, that doesn't include centers. That's for small forwards and power forwards. He was in the 100th percentile at 4.1% of shots blocked while he was in the game. He's in the 93rd percentile in steals, 46th percentile in fouls. So he still fouled probably a little too much. Again, in the 100th percentile in offensive rebounding percentage. The same for defensive rebounding percentage, except that one is at 96%. And the last two are free throw offensive rebounding or free throw defensive rebounding. I always find those a bit odd because the guards are definitely not going to be getting a lot of those rebounds. But he's on the 92nd percentile in offensive rebound percentage off of free throws, and off of defensive rebounds from free throws, he's in the 90th percentile. So on the defensive end, he obviously is stellar, especially for his group. Like you can start including even the centers, and even then, his defense is top notch. So that's what we're getting with him. That's partially why he has the nickname the Minister of Defense, because that's what he brings most to the table. Now, 2 seasons ago, he was able to have a much more reliable 3-point shot from the corners. So he was able to add a lot more offense to that stellar defense that he plays every single game. Now, last year, just like most of the players, he was struggling from 3-point land. So instead of shooting a higher percentage from three, it ended up going way down. So from 38% 2 seasons ago, it dropped all the way down to 26% last year, of course, by rounding up. Now, that's something that obviously is not going to cut it in the NBA, but because he plays such great defense, that's why he would play as much as he did. Now, maybe that's why his minutes were capped, because we were so inept on offense, unfortunately, that even with his stellar defense, we needed to have a different look and we needed to have different players in. That might be the case. So that's why if he's able to increase his 3-point percentage back up to what it was 2 seasons ago, then there would be no reason to take him out. And hopefully then he would be able to start adding more to his workload. Now, 2 seasons ago, as I mentioned, he had gained a bit of bulk because the idea was for him to play a lot more center. But since that didn't come about, he's gone back to slimming down. Now, if you've seen JI, obviously he's not the biggest guy frame wise in general. So that little bit of weight it seems really kind of slowed him down. And he mentioned that at different points that he didn't feel like he had his same versatility defensively because he wasn't able to be as quick as he had been because he was carrying a little more weight. So hopefully this season, now that he's going back to his fighting weight, going back to his lower weight class, hopefully now he'll be able to add that speed back. And maybe that little extra weight was what was hindering his 3 point shot. So hopefully he's able to bring his 3 point percentage back up. Now, if we go through the team efficiency in four factors, if you've seen my previous player profile videos, you're going to hear this part again. But for all those who don't know, basketball, generally speaking, of course, is a difficult game to physically play. You have to be tall, have good hand-eye coordination. Now, when it comes to the stats, however, it's pretty standard in what we talk about in the big four categories, or the four factors is what they call them. So they worry about the types of shot that you're getting. If you're getting good shots, and that's where the effective field goal percentage comes. Are you turning the ball over or not? Are you able to rebound? And are you getting to the free throw line? So those are the four factors that are kind of like the holy grail, let's say, of the statistics when it comes to offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency as well. So really it's 8 factors because you're doing that for both offense and defense. So just like most Orlando Magic players from last year. A lot of his percentages aren't going to be super duper great, other than thankfully it looks that his offensive rebounding and his free throw rates were pretty good. If you look at his points per 100 possession, he was in the 25th percentile again for forwards. He was in the 25th percentile at 109.8 when it came to effective field goal percentage. He was in the 6th percentile at 49%. His turnover percentage. Now this is all offensive, right? So offensively, how often did they turn the ball over? He was in the 43rd percentile at around 15% ish. Now the offensive rebounding percentage, he had a pretty high number there. So he was able to be in the 88th percentile. So there were a lot of rebounds to be had because the Magic were shooting so poorly. So luckily, Goga, Wendell, and Jonathan, when he was playing, were able to grab a lot of the offensive rebounds. So that's always a key factor in continuing to have the possessions and keeping to add the plays to the possessions because that's going to help. Now, hopefully, this upcoming season is going to have a little bit less stray shots to be grabbing the offensive boards for, but continuing to have that as a focus. I'll talk about that in the film coming up. And they also shot a good free throw rate when he was also in the 88th percentile there for the offense. Now on defense, just as most of the Magic players, very high points per 100 possession. Is at 86th percentile there, 44th percentile for effective field goal percentage because the Magic had the second ranked offense last year, but it wasn't mostly about the holding the field goal percentage down. It was mostly about causing turnovers, which is what you see there. He was in the 96th percentile in turnover percentage with about 18% because that's how the Magic were able to keep teams from scoring. It was by taking the ball away from them, basically, as opposed to playing good enough defense and then hoping that they missed the shot. That wasn't what they were excelling at last year. It was by taking the ball away from people. And then the other team were able to have their offensive rebounds, ultimately our defensive rebounding rate. He was at 76th percentile with about 27-ish percent, and free throw rate, it was really high. He was in the 7th percentile. So the Magic defense, yes, were fouling a lot because they were handsy. So they had their arm in the cookie jar trying to steal the ball or trying to block shots. So that was really what the Magic struggled at last year defensively. If we're going to focus on one thing, it was fouling too often. Now, that could be by design. They want people to be aggressive and they want people to be in the other team's shirt. So they might just live with the free throw rate being what it is because that just is the way we want. We'll mitigate that with the new offense that we have, hopefully moving forward. If we kind of focus on offensively, what was the thing that he did the best? Now, if you really look at it, it wasn't much. If you watched my Tyus Jones player profile, you would see that he was in the high percentiles in so many different categories offensively. So hopefully he's bringing that to the Magic, and the Magic offense is able to continue to utilize him in all those different ways. With JI, a lot of it was more just on cutting. His 3-point percentage, as we mentioned, was down. His jump shots in general, he was missing a lot more than he had the year prior. So a lot of what his offense was the occasional three that did go in, since he shot 26%. That's something, right? He still was able to hit a few, as well as was cutting and offensive rebounds. So only scoring 5.4 points a game in the season, that's obviously very low, and we're hoping for more output offensively. That's the thing that hopefully everybody's starting to understand, since now we're looking to be a contender to make the NBA finals. Of course, we have guys that are going to be focusing on defense, like JI, and what we thought Goga would be, but Goga now has a 3-point shot, so who knows what that'll be. Or Wendell, the same thing. If Wendell's able to bounce back as well with his three, then hopefully we're getting more offense from each one of these guys if they're able to find their 3-point stroke again, or in Goga's case, develop a new one. So hopefully that's something that we do. But of course, that's not going to be their role. Their role is not going to be sharpshooter. Their role is going to be playing hard defense, blocking shots, getting rebounds offensively and defensively. That's going to be their role. However, their role is also to be open. They're going to be open just from all the attention the other guys are going to get. So their role is to hit the shot when they get the opportunity. So just 2 or 3 more 3-pointers, obviously, per game, that's going to increase his average. So if he can get his average back up to 7, 8 points per game, then that's obviously going to start adding points. If AB adds an extra 2 points and Tyus comes in and scores 11, 12 points per game, and Tristan goes from the points he had, he adds an extra 2 or 3 points, and Goga now adds an extra 1 or 2 points per game. All those little ones and twos, they start to add up. And with the bench being pretty deep, I guess we'll see how the rookies play into this and if they're going to have any playing time. But because we're now deeper, at least it feels deeper now with Tyus coming on board in the bench unit, that we have more guys that can score. And if we saw Tristan in Eurobasket, he did really well as well. So hopefully all these different factors, if they all get added together, and if, again, especially if JI is able to increase his offense, then we're gonna just start adding points and points and points. And if we add those points to our already stellar defense, even if we slip to, let's say, fifth defensively, we've been in the 20s on offense for 12 plus years at this point. So if we're able to get up to 13, 12, that already is going to close the gap that we're going to lose by taking a little step back on defense. So offense is going to have to start being the name of the game. So having guys play that are only scoring about 5 points a game, it's going to be difficult. So if we look at the cutting stats for JI, he's in the 76th percentile with 1.42 points per possession when it comes to cutting. So we'll see that in the film. He does a really good job of diving to the basket, especially it was surprising that kept happening throughout the season just because he was shooting so poorly from three. If he's able to incorporate the three back into his shot diet, then it's going to be easier for him to be able to cut to the basket and he'll be able to score more efficiently on there. Then another stat that I added on there is defensive impact, just because, again, he's so excellent at defense that's what we want to highlight as well on there. So if we look in the 71 games played, again, about 15 minutes per game, the defensive field goals made per game was only 1.3 made per game on 2.5 attempted. So he was able to keep the effective field goal rate down to only 50% when he was guarding the player. So he's always going to be one of those guys that are going to be able to play top-notch defense, but we have to make sure that he starts to include a top-notch offense as well. And even if it's not at the highest of top notches, he could be a lower notch, but as long as we're still able to add a little bit to his offense. We look at how he scores. So we look at his scoring splits, his field goals attempted. Like I mentioned before, it went from 60-40 2 seasons ago. He actually increased the amount of 3-pointers he was shooting per game last year. Unfortunately, his percentage went from 38% down to 26% for the season. His percentage of points from two-pointers about 50%. The percentage of points from three-point land was about 31%. So because of his three-point shooting woes last year, that's why partially why his scoring overall was down, because he ended up shooting more three-pointers and then unfortunately missing a lot more three-pointers than he had the year prior. Now, looking at the shot distance, he had a good amount of them at the rim, shooting about 70%. But if you look at the mid-range there, the mid-range, the 10 to 16 feet, he only shot about 27% from there. It just kind of get progressively worse the further away he got, which makes sense. That's what it normally does. Normally gets a little worse progressively as you go further away from the basket, but typically you don't go down from 50% to 27% to 25% to 25.3% from three. So that's the concern, and that's hopefully just a 1 year blip, and he's able to bounce back up to what it was the year prior. And you see, because of a lot of his offensive rebounding, there was a lot of putback dunks that he had. So he shot 58 dunks in the season last year, shooting 86% on those. But the jump shots is where everything fell apart. He shot 27% on jump shots, which includes the mid range and the 3-point land. And on layups, he shot about 50%. So if he's able to start increasing at least those little bits, like in the layups, he's a big guy. He's around the basket. Hopefully, he's able to bump that one up a little bit. And the jump shot. If he's able to rekindle that jump shot, that's just going to go towards the Orlando Magic internal growth that we already are expecting. Of course, we added Desmond, we added Tyus, but we're hoping for internal growth from all of our players. Even some of our older players, since he's entering his 7th season of playing, hopefully he's able to have worked on this during the offseason and increase his output when it comes to 3-point makes for the team. Now we're going to go over the film. So we're going to start off with the defense. Obviously, Minister of Defense, we're going to start off with his defense, and we're going to show you how he moves his feet and he's able to continue to stay in front or be able to chase down a couple guys here and there. Looking at these, this is him at a heavier weight. So he's going to be a little bit faster. He's already able to basically switch on at least 2 through 5 for sure. Sometimes there's some of the quicker ones that he's not able to stay in front of, but for the most part, he's able to stay in front of most players, and you're going to see here how he does so. So even here, even while he's getting picked, he gets a pick. AB does a good job of digging down, so the defender kind of has to do a inside out dribble, and even Mo is in a good position there to at least keep him from driving past and getting to the basket, which allows a JI to come and swipe that one here. So another one here, looks like he's a little bit beat and he's able to continue to push it. The same thing, looks like he's a little bit beat and he's able to recover. So even with all the injuries that have really sapped a couple years of his career, he still has the foot speed. And I think that's where I guess sometimes we get a bit taken aback on why he's not able to have a little bit of a higher workload, especially later on in the season when our defense was kind of slipping a little bit, where he wasn't getting the time that we were expecting him to do, especially as backup center when Mo was out. We were hoping that was the whole idea of him gaining the weight last offseason, was for him to play more, him be able to bring his defense at least into the bench unit, especially when Mo was out. But that didn't happen. So at least we can see, even at a heavier weight, he was able to stay in front of guys. Like here's a switch. I don't really know why they try to switch and blow by when JI is able to keep up and able to block shots. This was on a bigger guy there, trying to do a little bit of a sweep. Again, they try to blow by and even try to use their body to keep him, but the long arm of the law is going to swipe that. Get that out of here. Another one that they think that they get past him, and he blocks that one as well. He gets Jaime twice here. There's one, uses his body to try to get away, and smacks that one out. JI gets picked, and he's able to still recover here and get the block of the dunk there. Now this one's on LeBron, trying to use his muscle. JI is just too tall. Same thing. put a shoulder in JI, and he's still able to come up. These are his blocking dunks. Another one here, not afraid to meet them at the top to be able to block those shots. Here's another one. So he's one that definitely is a help defender. A lot of these he's coming off of the help side. So same thing with this one. He comes over. You see, he's really supposed to be guarding the guy over in the corner, and that's what they do. They try to scheme away from him. If for whatever reason a team is just normally trying to get a switch for the big guy, and then they don't realize that JI is the one that they're switching into. Otherwise, they try to scheme away from him, and when they do so, he's still able to still affect the play one way or another. So here again, when you have Goga and JI at the same time, that's just with Goga in the 90th, 93rd percentile of bigs when it comes to block percentage, and JI who's at the 100th percentile as we saw for forwards. And then if you add Jalen to the mix with being how high he is with the guards, it's a bit unfair really if you look at it when it comes on defense. Then really quickly we get humbled when it comes on offense, but defensively it's definitely something to behold. There's another one that he comes from the weak side. Here he drops, which you can see he's basically trying to cover both guys. Now, Jalen also is still involved, and Jalen's doing a good job of making sure that the defender feels him in the back there. And even when they're able to trick JI that first time, he has the first quick jump. He's able to have that second jump and be able to block that shot there. AB's covered a little bit, and then JI spikes that ball out of bounds. Same thing. Coming from the weak side, blocks that one as well. Another weak side on Vooch on that one. It just spikes that one out. It's so disrespectful. That's nice. Now on the break, he's still able to continue to impact there because he doesn't quit on any of these plays. Another rejection on Jordan. That one's on Jalen. And then now even on a jump shot, he's able to come out on there. Now that's his defense, right? As we see, we'll go over the steals a little bit later on and show his quick hands and his anticipation of being able to get into the passing lanes. Now we're going to go over the offensive bit now. So the elephant in the room, I've talked about it a couple times, is his shooting. So from the left side 2 seasons ago, he actually shot 50% from the left corner. But for some reason last year, all that evaporated and he only shot about 22% from the left corner. So hopefully he's able to enjoy the left corner a little bit more next year. It doesn't have to be 50%, but if he's able to bump it up to a reasonable percentage, then that's obviously, again, going to increase his overall percentage, but it's also going to increase the amount people are going to have to come out on you. And then after that, then you can blow past and drive, as we will see later on in the film as well. So here, Chet Holmgren's there. He misses that one. That, to me, that feels a bit like a microcosm of his year last year. Just there was something off last year, it was kind of like that for all the whole entire team. So it's not that we were just 30th in the league in 3-point percentage last year. No team had shot that poorly in like almost 10 years. Like that's how bad we shot last year. So whatever statistical anomaly happened last year, let's hope that that's only for last year, and now just we get the statistical regression back to the mean, and hopefully we're going to have a better percentage just by our own statistical regression, as well as, of course, adding Tyus and Desmond to the fold. Here he goes again from the left corner. Is one of the 22%. Here we go. This one is from the left corner again. Not so great. So as you see, when he shoots from the left corner, a lot of the times he's going to be wide open, especially by the end of the season when he had not shot well for most of the season. Of course, everybody does the scouting report. So once he was above the break as well, like his percentage just plummeted. So I'm not entirely sure why he would shoot as many there, but that was one of the problems last year. Now, from the right corner, he actually continued to shoot an okay percentage, and he gets the friendly bounce on that one. I think he gets another one here. Yep. So he actually shot an okay percentage, like I said, from the right. It was about 36%, if I'm correct. So maybe you should just hang out on the right if the left isn't working so well. And of course, it has to be in the corner above the break in general, no matter where it was. It just, his shot just wasn't there at all last season. Because you see open a lot of the times, but he has to be able to bring the bigs out because that's just going to open up the floor for Franz and Paulo, or on the bench unit, Tristan and AB. And we see just it all season long, it was just a struggle. And he played a good amount last year. 71 games is the second highest of his career. 75 is his highest. So hopefully he's able to get there this year and with a little bit more. So here is where we start to see the drives. Now, as I mentioned, I was a bit surprised that that was just kind of what organically happened. He was able to continue to drive. That's why he was in the 76th percentile in cutting. For whatever reason, I guess they were so not worried about his three-pointer that the defense wasn't even looking his direction, and he was able to do a lot of back cutting in that way, which is what happens in a couple of these. You'll see they weren't even looking his direction because they know he's either A, not going to get the ball, or B, he was just not going to be able to make the shot. So they were able to hedge a little bit more on some of the other players and sag a bit into the paint. So here's some of his drives. Here we go. There's just guys aren't even covering him really. So he's able to just make nice free drives. And I think that's something that he can continue to do next year, even if his three isn't going down. If he continues to do that, then I think he's going to definitely add more points. Because again, if he gets up to 7, 8 points per game, we're not talking him having to make a 10 point per game jump. If he's able to add 2, 3 points here and there to add to the offensive total, I think that's really going to be something that is additive. And with his defense being what it is, we just need that little extra. And that's something that from each person now, especially again, with our goals being what they are, we need players that are going to be playing at a high level. And hopefully he does the work to ensure that the three goes down. And if it's not, then continuing to cut and go back door and working the boards, as we'll see a little later on in the film here. Now, if he stays in the dunker spot as well, again, I know he's thin, but he's not invisible. So I'm not entirely sure why a lot of the times these guys are totally not guarding him. No, I can understand with he's only scoring 5 points a game, but still. So as long as we're able to get him moving, because it's either shooting the three or in movement at the rim. Those were really the only shots he took. He didn't shoot well from mid range, but he also didn't shoot that many from the mid range. So here's going to be a couple of those here. A little spin. He really was doing a lot of, as you see, a lot of turnaround jumpers last year. Here's another one. So he made it look nice, and it looks good when he shoots them and they go in smoothly. It looks real good that he's doing these little fadeaways. It just was something that obviously his usage is pretty low on this team offensively, but that's not only by design, it's just also by output. Now his little fadeaway with his little foot up is it almost looks a little bit like a Dirk fadeaway because one leg is always there's the Dirk. He misses that one there. Here's another one. So not entirely sure why he felt the need to not square up. And I think that's see if he squares up, it was a bit short, but it was way more on target than some of the other ones. Now these he had a little push shot there, and that's something that I talked about with Goga in Goga's player profile. If you're having a tough time either at the rim of whatever reason, if you're able to just now do a little push shot or a floater, I just don't think they like to call it a floater for big guys. So kind of like the Hartenstein shot, just to kind of do a little bit of a floater. that'll again keep the defensive thinking and guessing on what you're going to do. Because then, if you're able to start hitting that with a little bit of regularity, then you'll be able to blow by and get to the basket. Because as we see, he's still pretty quick even after all the injuries. So the jump shot just wasn't there last year. Hopefully, he's able to get that all back, and I think he can, and I think that's something that most of the Magic staff hopefully are working with him on that because the shot doesn't look broken. It just is missing on it. So the rebounding is, as I mentioned, he had a good high percentage of the offensive rebounding percentage when he was on the court. Unfortunately, he wasn't on the court too much, just minutes wise. But he's a good offensive rebounder when he's in the game, as we see here. A lot of putbacks. Unfortunately, again, there was a lot of misses from the Magic last year, so there was a lot of opportunity for that. But he swoops in and he's able to score. But far too often offensively, he would just settle of being in the background, except on defense. Now, on offense, that was just what it was a lot of the times. So if he's able to use his length, it is hard, however, for him to get a lot of rebounds just because there's a lot of times where he's being switched onto. So then he ends up being the guy at the point. I talked about this a little bit with Goga as well. Whenever they're farther away from the basket, then of course it's going to be harder for them to get the rebound. And it's not the 1990s basketball anymore where the center or the power forward are just there waiting for they do the early work to get position so that they're able to box out and get the rebound. A lot of the times with the way basketball's played now, there's a lot of long rebounds. So that's one of the ways he's able to get a lot of his rebounds off of ricocheted threes and him still being out on the perimeter. But when he's able to dig in and be able to get big rebounds with his length, it's more often than not, then he's going to be able to get that ball. See how he just leaps over guys there and able to sweep on there. So that's something that hopefully he's able to work on a little bit more. Obviously, he's in one of the high percentiles for his category, but it's something that he could have more than 4 rebounds a game. Basically, is what he did last year. So that's the hope that we're able to increase the workload. That'll increase a bit of the output when it comes to counting stats like that. He's not really going to be an assist guy. That's not really his game. His game is to shoot, which is again what's being asked of him, and that's what we're really looking for is for him to take the open shot, which he will be open a lot next year. He was open a lot last year. He just didn't make them. But this year, I think with the whole new fresh start, just with the statistical regression, I think everybody is going to shoot better than they did last year. It's unlikely he'll shoot 26% again next year. So that's something that it will come with time and it will just come by continuing to shoot. Now, go back to his defense here. He's going to be able to, you're going to see his quick hands as well as his anticipation. So it's going to see a lot of times where he just picks the ball off. He's able to kind of read what's happening and just look like he's a part of the play, actually. Playing safety in a lot of these, or he'll just pick your pocket. And that's what he does for these guys here in this section. He does a good job of swiping down and not necessarily fouling too often when he does so. Instead of getting the ball at the top, which he's so good at because he's so long, he's able to spike down on as people are gathering to be able to shoot. He does a good job of that. So if he's not blocking the ball up high, he's using his quick hands and he's swiping the ball down low. Poor Shangoon here. Up, he swipes him on that one. Here's another one. Up, he picks his pocket from the back. Up, another game. Oh, we're going to pick that pocket there. So that's the film on JI's season last year on some of the good as well as some of the bad. Now, to do a bit of a recap, it all starts with him being healthy. Like that's what we all hope for him is for him to continue to be healthy. He's had 2 seasons in a row now that he's been relatively healthy, playing over 50 75 games in each one of those 2 seasons. Last year, again, 71 games, second highest of his career. So hopefully we're on the upward trajectory and he's able to at least keep that one plateaued, because 71 is a high number. If not, maybe break his record and go to 76 games or so. Now that would be incredible, just for a story from where he's come from to being able to play over 70 games 2 seasons in a row. That would be great. So that's something that hopefully we're able to count on, and he'll be able to play more of a role off of the bench instead of, it kind of felt like spot minutes. Even scoring 15 minutes a game was the average, but it didn't feel that way. He wasn't making the impact offensively that he had 2 years prior, and that, I don't know if that hurt the defense, but it just even his defense at 1.1 blocks per game actually is a bit low for him, because he's able to normally, with his quickness and his lateral quickness and also his length, he's able to normally just reject so many more shots that even the 1.1 is not where he normally is at. So hopefully him losing the weight this off season is going to make him quicker again. Normally, you want to lose weight the older you get, especially as a big man, just to make sure that the joints don't get beat up as much as they did when they were younger. So I think it's a good thing that they asked him to slim back down, or be slimmer than he was last year. That's just going to help him, I feel, in the long run. So that's one thing that really, it all starts and stops with his health. And I've mentioned before with the other guy in the other player profiles, I don't really want anybody to just be given a role. Now, I feel, however, that the coaching staff needs to do a better job of defining roles. With Tristan and Goga and JI, it just didn't feel that they knew when they were going to get in the game. We were injured last year, so of course, at the beginning of the season, the guys had to play more because we were down both Paolo and Franz and Jalen at one point. So of course the rotations are going to be jumbled up a little bit. And then once those two guys came back at the end of the season, then of course the rotations are going to lock into a different one than they were while they were out injured. But it still felt as JI, some games just didn't play for whatever reason. And maybe it was injury management, and that's something that the Magic could disclose, but it wasn't something that on the telecast they would mention specifically. So he would be there. He just wasn't there. And hopefully this year he's able to come with a renewed sense of being there and being the person to continue to have the moniker of Minister of Defense. And now being a little lighter of foot, hopefully he's able to continue to wreak havoc defensively as he has in the past. But if they're going to define his role as being defense only and then once in a while shooting the ball, then that's something that hopefully he has been working this summer to continue to develop a more consistent 3-point shot. And at worst, just go to the right corner. If the left corner isn't working anymore, then go to the right corner. And if for some reason this year the right corner isn't the one, then they need to get him to the spots that he's going to be successful in. And that's another thing about the coaching. It felt last year there just wasn't this sense of putting guys in the best positions for them to succeed. It was more like, this is our system, you got to succeed. I feels that the best coaches and the best coaching staff are able to mold the offense and defense to their players, and it just didn't feel that way all the time last year. So hopefully they are able to put JI in a place to be able to succeed, and that's something that will just benefit everyone. It'll benefit JI, it'll benefit us. Now, the other elephant in the room is just how expensive the team is going to get. There might be some different trade rumors that we're going to hear JI being in throughout the course of the season, especially if the Magic underperform when they come out of the gates. Then you're really going to hear a lot of that. So we'll see what happens there. But that's business stuff that we're not going to really worry about. We're worried about what's going to happen on the court, and JI has an opportunity to definitely come back with a vengeance, be able to get his 3-point percentage back up better than 26%. If it's to 32%, if it's to 34%, like obviously those are lower than average and we want it to be higher. But even then, that would show a massive increase, and that would still just add a few points here and there to each one of the Magic games, and just continue to add those little bits of points here and there. Hopefully, you're going to be able to get us out of the bottom 10 in offensive rating this year. That's a bit on JI. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment below on what you thought of JI's year last year and what you think JI is going to do this year. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I produce, because the season's about to start and there's going to be a lot of Orlando Magic content coming your way here at the Orlando Magic Nation. Again, I want to thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope you're having a great day.